Well, we're on air. This is the special council meeting, 30 November 2021. The meeting commenced at 2 minutes past 2. The meeting is now open and I acknowledge the traditional owners of our region and we recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and emerging. All councillors are present apart from Councillor Simons, who is an apology. If any councillor has a conflict or an interest, either personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act, or any conflict described in the Council's Code of Conduct, please let us know. Now, Planning Authority section, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I'll move that council no acts of Planning Authority at 2:03 p.m.
Is there a second? Councillor Browning. All those in favour, raise their hands. Against? Carried unanimously. The subject of the agenda is item 2.1 in the agenda that have been published. Development application 2021 of 2021, number 282, 1130 Dolphin Sands Road, certificate of title, volume 5, 666, folio 175.
54666.
I'm sorry? Please go on.
54666.
Oh, it's 54666. I'm sorry if I didn't say that. It's 54666, folio 175. Can I have a motion? Yes, Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that pursuant to section 57 of Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, development application 2021/282 at 1130 Dolphin Sands Road, Dolphin Sands, CT 54666/17, for construction of a dwelling to be used for visitor accommodation, be approved with the following conditions. 1 through to 8 with advice.
Is a second. Councillor Arnold. Councillor Woods, would you like to speak to the motion?
Not at this stage, Mayor. I'll leave for closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favour of the motion? Anyone have any things to say about the motion, either for or against? Councillor Browning.
Thank you, Mayor. I will not be supporting the motion as I'm certain the proposal fails to meet the assessment standards in relation to performance criteria D34.4.1, P1A and P1C, building exceeding building height of 5 metres, and also performance criteria for inundation prone areas code E35.7.3, P1C and P1E.
Anyone else wish? Please go ahead.
Regarding D34.4.1A, the building height must be unobtrusive within the surrounding landscape. The report relies on the concept that neighbouring dwellings on adjacent properties have similar Australian height datum, AHD levels, and therefore this building, although having a slightly higher AHD than most of the surrounding dwellings, will satisfy the criteria. This fails to address, in my opinion, the the intent of the words within the surrounding landscape, regardless of the AHD level of surrounding roof lines. It is the word landscape, not roof line, that must be considered. A 7.8 metre high roof line in a landscape void of any vegetation other than low coastal shrub is considerably more obtrusive in the landscape than a 5 metre high roof line in the same landscape of low scrub, regardless of the similar AHD of the top of the roof. Simply equating the obstruction to the highest common denominator of a coastline of level roof lines should not be considered adequate consideration of that performance criteria. Regarding D34.4.1c, building height must not unreasonably impact on the amenity of adjoining lots from including visual bulk. It is impossible to argue that the proposed structure does not have considerable visual bulk. Its extensive footprint area, elongated facade and extensive height creates a visual presence impossible to avoid. The montage 5 on drawing number ADA 16A, that's on page 24 of 81 of the attachments, is a clear indication of the visual impact of the structure, and attempts in drawings 12, 13 and 14 to represent minimal visual bulk fail to address the impact from adjoining lot perspectives and other views. Regarding E15.7.3, P1C, risk to buildings and other works arising from wave run-up is adequately mitigated through siting, structural or design methods. The figure number 2, page 40 of 81 of attachments, shows the proposed dwelling within the zone of permanent submersion caused by sea level rise protection projected for 2100. Figure number 3, page 41 of 81 attachments, shows the dwelling within the zones of inundation by projected storm surge projected for 2050 and for 2100. Nowhere in the proponent's report or the planning report is there any reference to adequate mitigation through siting, structural or design methods, other than a reference to extending foundation footings. No reference can be found regarding mitigating the impacts of inundation. Regarding E15.7.3 P1E, access to the site will not be lost or substantially compromised by expected future sea level rise, either on or off-site. In relation to this performance criteria, from figure 2 on page 40, it is unambiguous. The site will be permanently compromised by sea level rise, even by the standards provided in the proponent's report. Comments relating to habitable rooms are, in my opinion, not defined within the planning scheme, and failure to address the impact on all features of the dwelling as a whole, including the ground floor, fails to adequately address the intent of the performance criteria, in my opinion. In addition to aspects of the report's lack of adequate consideration of compliance with the specific intent of the performance criteria in relation to inundation and flooding of the proposed dwelling, there is a serious matter of the relevance of the information provided by the proponent in relation to the source of flooding and the storm level figures provided in the report. They are based, as stated in the report, on the Department of Premier and Cabinet DPAC Coastal Hazards in Tasmania Summary Report on Coastal Hazard Technical Report DPAC 2016. This report predates by at least 3 years the lowering of the foreshore immediately in front of this dwelling and the construction of a 3 metre odd wide breach of the fore dune to the beachfront, as shown in drawing number DA 17A, page 25 of 81. Both these considerable earthworks have dramatically altered the likely impact of sea level rise and storm surge, in my opinion, into the property, and so would considerably alter the outdated inundation projections of the 2016 DPAC report. In addition to the use of outdated, albeit the only available, DPAC report to date, the proponents used the projections used in the DPAC report are based purely on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 5th Assessment Report, IPCC 5AR, dated 2014. This report has been subsequently updated by the current IPCC 6AR, curiously dated 2022. It is clear from this latest report that the projections for sea level rise and storm surge as used by the proponents' report are outdated and most likely grossly underestimated, in my opinion. As an example of the likely degree of disparity, the sea level rise and coastal vulnerability section of the latest IPCC 6AR report states that, and I quote, by 2050, many latitudes will experience a 100-year event annually. What that means is that by 2050, with the latest updated information, what happens once every 100 years will happen every year. This is an update on current levels, a clear and unambiguous warning that outdated projections are inadequate when dealing with current planning considerations in relation to the performance criteria E15 7.3 we are dealing with here. And as a final comment, from Chapter 4 of the IPCC AR6 2022, the implications for low-lying islands, coasts and communities states the following. Choosing and implementing responses to sea level rise presents society with profound governance challenges and difficult social choices. Inherently political and value-laden. The large uncertainties about post-2050 sea level rise and the substantial impact expected challenge established planning and decision-making practices and introduce the need for coordination within and between governance levels and policy domains. The report goes on to state, choosing and implementing responses is further challenged through various coastal stakeholders having conflicting interests in the future development of heavily used coastal areas. The planning scheme, that's the end of the quote. The planning scheme insists that we seriously consider the impacts of climate change and sea level rise when considering proposed development, in coastal areas. This proposal is an example of a coastal development that requires such serious consideration. I do not agree that the information provided in the report adequately addresses the related performance criteria I have raised, and therefore I cannot support this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bruni. Do you have a printed copy, or can you email that copy of comment to our Minutes Secretary, Jasmine Murray? Thank you. Does anyone else wish to say anything? Yes, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I'd just like to address the bulk or the perception of the bulk of the building. Our planner's report is that the dwelling will not have an unreasonable impact on the amenity of adjoining lots, as it will not overshadow or overlook adjoining lots, as the building is located towards the boundary with the foreshore. The visual bulk of the building is mitigated by the ground floor being substantially open with gaps provided between solid sections, and the proposal satisfies the performance criteria. So I'm just a little bit confused about the comments in relation to bulk when our planners have told us that this then meets the performance criteria. So in terms of the motion, I'm going to have to support the motion because of the responses that are in the planning report have dealt with all the issues that have been mentioned.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold. Would anyone else wish to say anything? Councillor Churchill.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Breeny for an absolutely amazing analysis of what's gone on there. I think that's to be commended, especially with a lot of information there that I was not aware of. So anything I have to say is in support of much of what Councillor Breeny has said, and I will only be repeating probably some of what he's said. I also want to acknowledge the quality of the representations that were submitted to this DA, and I believe there's a lot of these people have put in some very good points. Some of it is outside of our remit as a planning authority, but there are concerns expressed within those representations that we have to examine as standards within the planning scheme, and we must give those consideration. And I would also like to make the point that I believe that the presentation of the reports from the proponents were deficient in a couple of areas. The measurements that we were given on this building were inadequate, and I'm still not comfortable with some of the measurements that we've been given. They should have been detailed to our planners much better than they were. I have an issue with the height of this building. The building, in all of the reports that we had, we were led to believe that the building was 7.7 metres from ground level. When you examine it more closely, you'll see that it's in fact 8.2 metres from the actual ground level. That's very easily calculated. We were given an overall AHD of 9.5 metres, and the proponent has stated that the actual level of the ground from which the dwelling will be constructed is at 1.3 AHD. If we take 1.3 from 9.5, we've got 8.2 metres. So that is the actual height of the proposed building. Depending on where you look at this building from within the environment, it will have various different visual measurements because of its irregular shape. At a minimum, from the eastern elevation, it is around 10 metres wide. At probably what is the northeastern elevation, that would stretch to somewhere over 37 metres wide. So, under standard 34.4.1 building height, the acceptable solution is 5 metres. At around 8.2 metres above actual ground level, it is clearly above 5 metres by more than 60%. At 8.2 metres high and an upper floor level of around 300 square metres, I would think this building will be obtrusive within the landscape and present unreasonable visual bulk. At its longest dimension, it is around 37 metres, as I've already said. And some of the walls of the lower floor have openings. However, I think that due to the overall size of the building, the lower floor will read as a large structure containing both open and closed garage and storage spaces, as well as storage space for water tanks under the building. And I think that will also contribute to the visual bulk of this building. Councillor Breeny has given a very, very good description of the inundation-prone area code, and I think I can't really add too much to what he has said there. The building has a floor level below the minimum level, the minimum level recommended as the standard for Dolphin Sands, which is a particular purpose zone, is 2.3 metres AHD. This building will commence at 1.3 metres. This lower floor area, combined with a frontal dune lowered by human excavation, will potentially compromise access to the immediate building site and its surroundings in the face of climate change. If there were to be a flooding incident or an inundation incident, the access to the base of this building could well be compromised. In summary, it is the height, the bulk of the building is unacceptable, and the real possibility of inundation are my major concerns around this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Churchill. Do you have a copy of that submission you could give to our Minute Secretary?
I do have something along those lines.
Thank you very much. Now, does anyone else wish to make any comment, either for or against the proposal? Yes,
Yes, I'd like-
please, mover of the motion.
This is not closing either,
I
so
will please say, and you'll have a
I
right
just
to
have a
close
question
later.
through to our planner, if I may. Who will be responsible for the proposed inundation of this property, given the comments of Councillor Churchill and Councillor Breeny? Who will be responsible for that if this is passed today?
Excuse me, could you just elaborate what you mean by responsible?
Well, if council passes this building today, if it's passed,
Yeah.
and there's been talk of climate change issues and things going forward, who is going to be responsible for this building if it is passed and if this happens to the building?
You mean if someone sues for damages, who might be sued? Is that the question?
Yes. Whose responsibility is it? Is it ours, or councillors, or the proposed builders or architect or whoever?
It might be many, of course, but please answer the question if we can give an answer.
Through you, Mayor, answer Councillor Wood's inquiry. It's not something that I can really answer as a planning officer.
Thank you.
No, he's going to say more.
Oh, please go on. If you want to have any elaboration,
To
do.
me, it's more of a legal question that I'm not qualified to provide an answer. Sorry.
Thank you very much for that. Director of Planning and Development, do you have a comment to make? Does anyone else wish to say anything before I call upon our mover to exercise her right of address? Yes, please, General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, it was brought to my attention that when the Deputy Mayor moved the motion originally, and it'll come through on the recording, the 5 at the end of CT 54666 stroke 175, the 5 was left off. So if we can just amend that and move and second it again. I know it's a minor.
Well, I think it's a clerical error. It's not. I don't think it requires an amendment.
It's your call, Mr.
I think
Mayor.
it's a clerical error. It's obviously relating to the matter on the agenda.
So for the record, Deputy Mayor, you meant to say CT 54666 stroke 175. Unfortunately, you left off the 5.
I did. I must have done. Okay, thank
It's
you.
a clerical error. I don't think
Yeah.
it requires another motion.
I'm happy with it.
Does anyone else wish to say anything on this matter? Well, I call upon the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Jenny Woods, to exercise her right to address us relating to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to this, we have talked about ad nauseum to a degree the fact that we have planning or buildings coming to us that are above height, and this one is clearly above height. However, I must say, this is not being scripted or anything like this, so I'm on the hop. This is above height. But why does this keep happening? And two, what do we do about it? You know, it's clearly an issue with councillors around the table, and I certainly respect their thoughts about it. But we get these come to us, and we get these reports that come to us, and they're qualified advice by our planners, and it's recommended for approval. So in that regard, I will be supporting this today, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now read the motion if I could see the top part of it. The motion is that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, development application 2021/282 at 1130 Dolphin Sands Road, Dolphin Sands, Certificate of Title Volume 54666, Folio 175, for the construction of a dwelling to be used for visit accommodation, be approved with the following conditions, and there are a list of conditions. All those in favour of this motion, please raise their hand. All those against? I declare the motion lost. Those in favour were Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Arnold. Those against were the balance of the councillors in this room. Now,
Excuse me.
I think, yes,
I think our Director of Planning would like to seek some advice.
yes, Director of Planning. I hope it's not from me. General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So, it's been brought to my attention in regards to, and this is out of the planning regulations, procedures. In regards to a motion being lost, no decision is made. A lost motion should not be regarded as the council or committee having made a decision in the matter. So we actually need to put up a new motion.
Well, would any councillor like to move a motion, which I suppose would be a motion of refusal?
Yeah.
Councillor Bruni or Councillor Churchill? Which one? Councillor Churchill.
Yes, I'll move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, development application 2021/282 at 1130 Dolphin Sands Road, Dolphin Sands, CT 54666/1 175 for the construction of a dwelling to be used for visitor accommodation be refused.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Bruni. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to adopt the matters you said in refusal of the voting against the last motion as the reasons for this motion?
Yes, I have nothing further.
Councillor Bruni, do you wish to take the same tack?
Yes, I will support the motion. I will support the motion with regard to my previous statements with regards to the last motion.
So you used those previous statements in support of this motion that you've now seconded?
That's correct. Failure to comply with performance criteria D34.41 P, A and C and E 15.7.3 P1, C and E.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak one way or the other in support of this motion of refusal? If that's the case, I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? There are 5 in favour, 2 against. Those in favour were Councillor Browning, Robinson, Bruni, Churchill and Mayor Young. Those against were Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Arnold. I declare the motion lost.
Passed.
I'm sorry, it passed. Another clerical error coming from the brain. Now, can I have, so far as planning authority is concerned, can I have a motion? Yes, Councillor Robinson.
At 2:34, that council no longer acts as a planning authority at 2:34 PM rather, at the end there.
Is Councillor Bruni, seconded. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Now, I declare the council meeting closed at 2:35 PM. Thank you all for your attendance in this very difficult matter. It's a matter of discretion, a strong opinion one way or the other.